Welcome, everyone. We are here today with Michell Stockmann, and we are talking about securing and legitimizing your digital presence. If you've been watching the news ever, but especially in recent weeks and months, there's been a ton of talk about the importance of security. Some of the biggest, brightest, most successful companies and business leaders are getting hacked. Some of the weaknesses that they're having in their own businesses and their digital presence are being compromised. While most of us probably aren't on that super high level, even as day-to-day business owners and small businesses and even mid-sized businesses that you may work for, having our digital presence be secure is more important than ever. So, and then also while we're on the subject of talking about our digital presence, and then while I've got the incredible Michell Stockmann here with me, I wanted to ask her a little bit, dive a little bit into what that presence should look like. So you guys are in for a really great conversation. Michelle, thank you for being with me today.
Thanks, Kate. So fun. I feel like I should wave at you across the hall.
I know. I love it. Yes, we're both here at Rise. I love it. Well, thanks for being with me today. So I could wax poetic about what an incredible digital marketer and strategist you are, but no one's going to share better about who you are and how incredible you are than yourself. So I want everyone who's watching real quick just to know a little bit more about your background, your specialty, so that they know the legitimacy that you're bringing to this conversation and what they're in store for.
Sure, not a problem. So Michell Stockmann, for the last 20 years, I have been the CEO of TechKnow Solutions. We are a web design, graphic design, social media marketing firm. It's crazy. We started out as an IT company 20 years ago, my husband and I doing it in our basement, and it worked out really well. And I actually was a teacher, little elementary school kids, love them. They get my jokes, they hug me. That's all the things I'm about all the time. So we ended up getting pretty busy with our IT company that we had to go full time. So I've been in that world of security and IT for a good 15 years. About 5-6 years ago, we stopped doing that part and just focused on the web design and marketing piece because it's not always just fire emergencies. I can do it by the pool. I could do it on vacation. It's very portable. During a pandemic, it worked out wonderfully as well. So that's kind of where we're at. We have a variety of from large corporations to small. I love the mom and pops because I love being able to help them get some leverage that they can't always afford with, the budgets that these larger companies kind of have. So, sure. And the teacher in me loves to educate them on all of these kind of things. So that's kind of where my role has evolved over the years and has changed. So.
Well, fantastic. Yeah. And I love all of those hats are going to help us so much with this conversation too, because I'll be honest, I might be technically, I believe the term is geriatric millennial, which if that's not something that makes you feel, sexy, I don't know what is, but although I might technically be one of the oldest millennials out there, technology and all this IT stuff, still so much of it is over my head. And as a business owner too, and whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for a business, we all have so much on our plate. And I think that it can be really paralyzing with all of the new technology, all of the new apps, all of the new things. It feels like the rules are constantly changing. And so I find it really helpful to have someone who can to be sitting down with you, kind of help us focus on the things that we really need to focus on and put them in layman's terms, like an elementary school teacher. So this is perfect. Talk to me like an 8-year-old. This is great. So first and foremost, I wanted to kind of dive into websites, as you said, websites, web development. So we all need a website, whether no matter the size of our business, it's important. Yes. And why is that so important to us?
Well, mostly having a website legitimizes your business, right? The first thing everybody does is they pick up their phone and they're either Googling you, they're Facebooking, checking to see if you're on Facebook, they're checking to see if you have a website, they're using that. We don't have, talk about old, phone books anymore or yellow pages. So the go-to to find contact information is typically the web, is typically on a website. The .com era from quite a while ago gave some people some skepticism when it came to some websites because all of these websites popped up. Some were real, some were local, some were fake. And so now by having that website, having certain things on there, contact information, location information, helps give that consumer some validation like, okay, I think this is legitimate. I think this is a real company versus somebody who's masking as a local company who's actually overseas or something. So that's where that website is. And by having particular content on there of services you provide, products you offer, helps your consumer also know to come to your company or not. I wouldn't want somebody coming to us that now needs computer repair help. We don't do that anymore. So my website should reflect that information, so that it keeps my customers updated on what we have.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Well, I do want to chat. Yeah, like hear a little bit more about like what, as you said, contact info, things like that. So okay, like, all right, I got to have a website, whether it already exists or doesn't. I'm starting one out. What's important when I'm first getting my website started from a security standpoint? There's tons of different website building companies and things out there, whether it's a do-it-yourself one, whether it's reaching out to a company like yours to establish a website. What are kind of the first and most important things from a security standpoint that we should be looking for to make sure we set ourselves up for success?
Sure. So the first thing you do after creating the name of your business and knowing what you're going to offer, knowing what that's going to be about, is securing that domain name. So the domain name is basically the keys to the kingdom. You have to have that domain name. So for me, it's techknowsolutions.com. That's my domain name. You might want to get variations of your domain name as well. So TechKnow is actually spelled TECHKNOW because it's a play on words, and it was cute 20 years ago. I'm not willing to change it anymore, but everybody thinks we're a dance club. So it's TECHNO. So I might want to buy that as well. So people who type that in would type in the correct address versus being routed to somewhere else. So having that domain name secured is like a number one thing. You'll also notice while I'm talking about being secured, I'm going to roll into an SSL certificate. So at the top of your browser, there's a little lock button. And that little lock button, you used to only see it on like bank websites or maybe shopping websites. Well, now Google, as you talked to Kate, everything's changing so quickly. There's been so many attacks and hacking incidents that Google really just wants you to make sure you get that lock on there. It's an extra layer of security. So it's kind of like having a computer without any antivirus on it or some other security. You're kind of a free-for-all, right? So if a little virus is coming along, it's going to find your computer on the web and come right in because there's nothing stopping it. There's nothing blocking it. So that security lock will really help. On your website as well, like I mentioned, having that contact form, if you don't want to have your email address on there, you don't want people to just be able to copy that email address and send you something directly because you get a lot of junk and a lot of spam from people. But having something on there that people know they can reach you is very important. Having a location on there so people know you're United States, if that makes a difference to them, or are you local to the area where they can pop in, or they know they're working with somebody locally. So having those kind of things and really helps with that security piece. And email too, while we're kind of on that topic, when you're choosing your domain name and you're choosing the next step we usually go to with people is their email addresses. And so when you're choosing that email address, something to think about is we really want to build relationships with our customers, right? We want them to know we're here for them. We want them to know we're here to provide for them. And so a lot of people want to make that email address personal. You want the Kate at, you want the Michelle at, and that's nice. But if Kate gets another job and she leaves, well, now all that communication she's had over the years she's been at that company, all of those relationships she's made, if you get rid of that email address, then all of that is gone as well because you're getting Kate's replacement there. But in my world, I'll have customers come back from 3 years ago. Oh, I finally decided I want that website now. 3 years ago,
Yeah.
So you don't want to lose that because you don't know what people will come back to. So think of things like having a hello at or an info at or admin or sales. It may seem impersonal, but it's also going to, keep that flow. So the person who, and I'm not saying, Kate, that you're going anywhere, but, whoever comes in to replace Kate then now has access to that email. If something else comes in there, then she would at least be aware of it. So making sure that you have those kind of things. If you have to cut it off for an employee as well, you don't want, we hear of rogue employees all the time. You don't want that employee then to contact all your customers and say, oh, hey, I'm starting my own thing. Come follow me here.
Sure.
And they could with a regular email, but you're going to see that. You're going to know that. You might send something out saying, hey, we're really sorry Kate left, but, don't follow her. Stay with us.
Yeah. Well, and what I like that you're getting onto, I think at first we're kind of thinking a lot about like that external security and knowing who you are, where you are, and how to protect from like scammers and hackers. And I do want to talk a little bit more about that too, but also that internal security level. I mean, it's a very vulnerable thing, I can say, as a business owner, but even if, again, you work for a huge corporation and you have a team member on your team that you're bringing in, you're sharing a lot of really important business information with them. And life happens, things happen. So whether it's that they're angry and rogue and whatever it is, or even like maybe leave on perfectly good terms. But we all share and give access to, whether it's through Dropbox, whether it's through Google Drive. You add people on to share. These cloud-based tools are so helpful. But staying on top of that, you can accidentally, I will hand to God say, we have noticed that vendors that we've shared and given shared access to on our Google Drive before, years later, like we finally consider, like take a look at who all of our sharing permissions have gone to. And we see people that, oh my gosh, they could have jumped on to our systems and they've had access all this time. So I probably answered my own question here, but why is that a problem? And what kinds of things of thinking about that kind of internal and more that HR security that we should be mindful of as well?
Yes. So, and that's something that businesses don't think of, especially when you're a startup, because you're trying to minimize costs. You're trying to make it as easy as possible. The pandemic, I feel like I use this as an example a lot, but it showed we can work remotely very easily. There's tools galore out there. But yes, to your point of saying, hey, I'm going to give you access to this, but you forget that you gave them access to it. And then as you add more things to that, what other access do they have? You don't go back and change that. There are, or accidentally or on purpose, in my IT days, we've had a number of, employees of corporations and small businesses that accidentally deleted the entire folder of information or accidentally deleted the entire everything. You hate it when it happens accidentally. You hate it even more when it happens on purpose. So backing up is hugely important. Backing up, and not just backing up, but archiving as well. So looking into those systems. So your website, getting back to hacks and such, if your website isn't getting backed up by your hosting company where that's at, if you got a virus on it, like a lot of these Bitcoin, you keep hearing about, they've taken over that website and now things don't work unless they pay a ransom. So you have this ransomware stuff. And if you don't have a backup to go, oh, forget it, I don't have to pay you because I have a backup, I can just restore from backup. Great, no problem. But a lot of these companies that have to pay out in order to get their data back don't have proper backups. And therefore they have to pay to get their data back. Now, the hackers are getting smarter because people are going, oh my gosh, I need to back up. So they can put in some of these little viruses that then sprout months later. So it could have been in your system. So knowing how long you have of backups, and think of that too. If you're a company and you don't have a backup, if you have an online ordering system, if you don't have a backup, what are you going to do with all those orders that came through before the crash happened or before whatever happened. So same with your file system. So like a Dropbox has a backup system, but it also has an archival system. So it can go back to a certain point if somebody accidentally deleted something and you didn't recognize it for months. You may not access that file. And then when you need it, oh my gosh, what happened to that file? We need that file, or we need the version before that file. It can keep version options as well. So just looking into those types of things, free is great. Google Drive is great, but there is a Google business option. There's, and not that I want to get into a ton of tips, but like Dropbox transfer, there's these transfer programs. So Dropbox has a transfer. So if I send something to my clients, then it turns off access after a week. Well, if you didn't get into it in a week, then that's on you, or I'll send you a new link. So there's those kind of things too, where that could expire. So you don't have to worry about, I forgot to not give them access again.
Yeah. So is there sort of a best practice on, from a backup standpoint, the number of days? I mean, granted, you could say forever, but I mean, is there sort of a safe best practice for a normal, assuming that we're not going to be the target of some highly skilled Russian, government age, or not getting into politics, but regardless, assuming that as a lay business owner or business, sort of a best practice, a certain number of days that we should look into backing up, and or what does that process look like? Will our web hosting company have that already, or is it an external thing that we should be adding on and looking into?
So the answer is all of the above, because most businesses should have 30 days of backups, 30 days, because you may have had a virus or a bug on a website and not realized it, and you need to go back 30 days. If you're in business, you're going to know somebody couldn't contact you, or wow, our forms aren't coming through, or whatever. So 30 days is typically good. Your company should be doing auto backups. Hopefully that's included in your hosting plan. If not, it is an add-on. It should be automatic, but again, it depends on the company that you're with. So if you're paying a very, very cheap, low amount, probably you're just getting hosting. Think of your hosting as you're renting space on the internet for your website to sit. Your backups and your SSL are like your insurance policy. So you have the one for the safety, you have the other insurance policy in case something else happens. Now, if you're a store, you're selling products online, you may want backups. We have some that back up hourly, because you have to think, how much data could you re-enter into the system? How much data could you live without? How quick could you get information back? So if you're getting 100 orders an hour, wow, 100 orders, if you didn't have those hours back, could be a lot that you would have to put back into a system, or
30 days would be catastrophic. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So it really depends on your business and what orders and what you're using your website for, or your servers for. Okay.
Right.
Interesting. Goodness. Scary to think about, but it's happened to all of us. As you said, whether it's intentional or even unintentional, files get deleted, things get moved, things like that. So that's helpful advice. And one of those, and also, and I'm supposed to be doing this from my computer too, right? I'm supposed to be back at my computer too, on like an external hard drive, right?
Right. Yes. Well, a lot of places now online have what are called redundant backups, so you don't need to.
That's what that means.
But from my security world piece, you do want to have an on-site backup, because God forbid this doesn't happen, but let's say the internet goes out, and we've had blackout dates before, or you're without the internet for weeks or months at a time, or if it goes out and you don't have your stuff, on hand. We had this conversation at our office. All of our emails, our scheduling system, our task list, our billing system, everything is an on the cloud kind of component. There's nothing downloaded on my computer. It's just a portal for me to log into all the things. Yeah. And so, thinking of that kind of stuff, that's why a lot of these places have that redundant. So if their servers go down at one location, it routes to the other one. So we don't even notice the amount of times these places go down. And we're very upset when it goes down for 10 minutes, because we're used to that that live action kind of
Yes.
stuff able to happen. And something we didn't touch on that I want to make sure we do is know where all the dead bodies are buried, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Know where all of your logins are. I cannot tell you the number of times, you're a business owner. When you first start out, you're just delegating things because, hey, can you set up my email? Hey, can you set up my website? Hey, can you set up my social media? Hey, can you set up this? And so you have the IT guy knows your login stuff, and maybe he has the domain, and your web designer maybe has access to your hosting. And then this guy has access to your emails because they're setting that up. And then you let an employee set up your social media, so you don't even have control of that. When then you need to change, you don't have access to any of that. So at least know who has that. It's great to have multiple people that have access, like social media especially. And you'll hear that loads of time. Not have just the one person, not have just the one company, because and being careful what you have. You want to delegate a lot to employees, but be careful of what they have access to that you as an owner don't have access to. And you think, I'll just go to you when I need it. And I'm guilty of it as well. I don't know where those things sometimes are, but you have to have that one standard place because you're going to need it. And your domain name, like I mentioned, is keys to the kingdom. If you don't know where that is, if you don't have access to it, if your company that has access to it, if like I were to have access to that only, what if, God forbid, we close or something happens and you can't get it? I have all of that. You don't have anything. You can't get it back. Domain companies don't care. You have to go through a process to prove that you own it. It's not fun. So make sure you have all of that information and scramble right now and go look for it and find out where it's all at.
Yes. So you've dealt with companies who have found themselves in that situation before, where they're like, I've lost access to my existing site before.
Yes, far too many. And there's somewhere you can't get it back, especially social media. Mark Zuckerberg could care less about you and the fact that you don't have access to your social media. You can't close it down. You might have somebody who then types incorrect information about your company or whatever, or you just lose it. It's not always that other vindictive kind of thing, but you may just lose access to it, and then you don't have any control, and you have 10,000 followers that are actively engaged, and you just lose all of those people. Organizations are actually the worst at this because you rely on donations and just volunteer help. And the amount of organizations that we come into and say, okay, where's your domain? Okay, where are your emails? Where's that? They don't even know, and some you can go and hunt and peck and look for, but then it might have been set up 4 directors ago.
Sure.
So we don't know who did it. We don't know how to get a hold of them. And it's hard because it's working fine. It's just, but now we need to get into it to do something else. And that makes it really tricky.
Wow. Is there a place that you recommend, like once someone finds all this information, do you have a preferred, like secure storage, password protected, 1Password or LastPass or things like that, as opposed, or a sticky note stuck to your workstation, which
no, do not put sticky notes under your keyboards. Do not put, make it password 123. Do not make it, no. LastPass is great. And LastPass, even though it costs, you can also give other people access. So I could have a LastPass account and I can give my employees access to certain websites that they need access to without them knowing what the password is as well, because it auto fills it in. So you can create some securities that way too. You could give it to a vendor. Hey, this vendor needs this for, just to get in and change a DNS record or whatever, but I don't want them to have it. Or make sure if you do give it to somebody, change it to a password you don't use for everything and then change it back again. But just make sure you always have control of those pieces because it never fails. you go to find it and that company doesn't exist anymore, or they've been sold and it's to another company. And yeah, the amount of tales I could tell of horror stories is not fun.
And as you mentioned, as you outlined, I can identify, I can relate to so many of those scenarios. And that's even as someone who likes to think of themselves as a tech savvy business company. And so I know that whether it's other Rise members, my friends and family members, I mean, it all moves so fast and it's all very overwhelming. And it feels like a spider web. And so it's easy to get caught up in it and to lose track of it. So this is all really helpful stuff, really helpful advice. I love all of it. Trying to think, I know we talked about backups, we talked about social media, logins, the keys to the kingdom. Anything else that you think is important? I mean, again, we could go on and on and on about this. I know we should be changing our passwords frequently, which is probably, I hear all the time, and making it really complicated. But LastPass, or I know personally in my family, we use 1Password. And so that's similar but different. And it helps, it'll auto generate a different password. And it's like the craziest looking password I've ever seen. And so I never would have thought of. So that's another benefit that I've seen to things like that. But any other topics, either on what should be out there in your digital presence or best practices that you think our viewers should hear tonight?
The other thing is, one thing we didn't touch on would be consistency. And it comes back to kind of branding. If somebody comes to my website and then they go to my social media and then they go to an email and everything's kind of different, it creates that we're very skeptical about getting scammed, so then it creates wait a minute, their web address is this, but I'm emailing this, but that logo looks different here, or that doesn't feel like them here. Sure. If they're questioning those kind of things, then that's creating that legitimate issue of, I don't know if this is the same company. If your website bounces from one and then it opens up in a whole different kind of look and feel, that creates a little bit of anxiety with people, like, I might be on the wrong place. So this is where coming back to even branding is so important. So it has that same look, feel, whatever. You don't want somebody to get there, and we've seen it on social media. We could talk about this all day of, wow, I met you in person, but you're very different than what I see on social media. It's that same idea too. You don't want to create that confusion, and on social media, and I can't remember if we mentioned this or not, making sure multiple people have access to your social media. Also, we talked about the login part, but making sure, because if Kate and I are on one and Kate goes to jail because she says some racy things political wise, and they put her in Facebook jail, then at least I have access to it, so I can keep putting messages out to the clients or customers to let them know what's happening. But if you get locked down, it's like somebody came to your door and locked your door up, so you have to be really careful with those kind of things also.
Yeah, which then also reminds me too of something we talked about but paying attention, at checking in every couple of months or something, or making it part of an offboarding process to remove access from someone if they're these rogue employees that we touched on possibly too. I mean, thinking about, again, if your social media, your website and your social media are the front door to your business anymore. And if someone decides to go on and start posting stuff, removing their access would be a smart idea, I'm sure, as well. So sort of building that into perhaps either as an offboarding or just every once in a while going in and checking those things.
Right. Because you also, the number of people that have added people. A lot of this happens in organizations. I'm gonna let you help and you help and you help, and you have 5 or 6 people on there, then making sure that you clean that up and you keep that, easy for people to get into. No, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and you don't think about it, and you don't want it to be uncomfortable. You don't want to have to come up to an employee who's been with you for 15 years and say, hey, I went and listened to this webinar and they said I need to take away all your access and I need to put it here. That could create some anxiety and grief too, but it's more of centralizing it or just being aware of where it's all at, because things happen, people pass away, people get sick, people, find other job opportunities, and you're just scrambling trying to find another person. You're not thinking of those things. It's like with any kind of big event, we've all had family members pass away, and some of that is a huge rigmarole if we'd only known to do these kind of things ahead of time. So just being aware, just knowing where it's at, because if it's vital to the success of your business and staying open, then you should take more care into knowing where all of those things are, for sure.
I think that's an awesome place to start at. And yeah, it's awesome. And hopefully we're catching people at a time where they're not waiting until after they've been burned, after they've had an unexpected loss or damage happen, and they're able to stay on the forefront and be proactive and make some of these changes before they find themselves in a tough situation. So I am so grateful for your time, Michelle, and you sharing so well all of your insights and advice. And I now have a long to-do list of things for me to check on for our business, and I'm sure all of our viewers do too. If people want to connect with you and they have follow-up questions, or they want to chat more, if they say, oh my gosh, I just can't even do this myself, Michelle, I need your help. What would be the best way? Obviously on Rise Digital. I know you're super active and wonderful on Rise Digital. Any other great ways for people to connect with you?
Well, they can always come visit me. I need to spend more time here, but always at my email. We have a hello at TKS Design Team. That's always good. Or my website, which is the TechKnow, spelled TechKnow Solutions.com.
Thank you, Michelle, so much. And thanks so much to all of our viewers for joining us today. I hope that you got as much value out of this as I did. Check out all the rest of the great videos and articles on Rise TV. And there's going to be more where this came from. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.